The G7, the group of seven, and the NATO countries met around the same time to discuss their common approach to the world. Well, what is their common approach? It's very clear that the approach that the G7 and NATO is taking is to somehow either delay or prevent the historical fact of the integration of Europe and Asia. That was taking place through Russian energy sales into Europe. That was taking place through the Belt and Road Initiative initiated by the Chinese and so on. At the G7 meeting, United States said, let's create a new fund, put at least the promise of $200 billion into that fund to build infrastructure in the global south and directly compete with the Chinese project. It was very clear that both at the G7 and at the NATO meeting, the Western countries, the Atlantic Alliance as it were, was looking for mechanisms to prevent Chinese and Russian, what they call influence in the world. So that's the project coming out of the G7 and NATO. On the other side, the BRICS countries are not actually calling for the bifurcation of the world or for preventing integration and so on. Ironically, the BRICS meeting is more about globalization, whereas the NATO G7 summit was more about partitioning the world, of encaging Russia and China, and that's how I see it. I actually don't see these two sets of projects as being about partitioning the world. I find that the NATO G7 project is about partitioning the world, or at least encaging Russia and China, whereas the BRICS project, and in fact from the geography it's pretty clear that it's not just about Eurasia, since it has South Africa, it has Brazil, and now perhaps Argentina. It's clear that the BRICS countries are suggesting let's not partition the world. We neither want one single country dominating the world, nor do we want to live in a world partitioned into two. What they are trying to indicate, and the BRICS meeting put this directly at the table, what they are trying to go towards is to build a world order where multilateral institutions, including the United Nations and so on, are taken seriously. So one is a project of world domination, as it were, from the Atlantic states, and the other is a project calling for more strength and integrity of multilateral institutions.